And here we go, the Downward Facing Spiritual Spiral podcast. My name, obviously, is Eddie Cohn, host, creator of The Spiritual Spiral, and thrilled you're here. Thanks for listening. Appreciate your support. We'll be getting to the conversation very soon. Polly Humphreys joins me again on the show today. She's an actor, writer, friend of mine here in Los Angeles. And I wanted to speak to Polly about our strange societal obsession with actors. Like, why do we care so much about what actors are doing and thinking? And why is their point of view and perspective so important? And I think a lot of this came up from my reading Neil Portman's book, Amusing Ourselves to Death. It really opened up my eyes and world to this idea of our addiction to being entertained. Like, as long as we're entertained, nuance doesn't matter, perspective doesn't matter. As long as we're emotionally entertained, we're satisfied. And I think a lot of times actors and TV shows fill that void. They're entertaining us. They're titillating us for who knows what reason. And I just think our priorities potentially are really off the deep end and out of whack. And it's like, who do you look up to? You know, who are you elevating in your life? And I was listening to this podcast earlier where this gentleman is questioning our culture's priorities. You know, what it values and religion and family, community. It's like all these staples and important parts of our lives are being usurped by social media and Hulu and actors. And why do we care? And I really feel like we need to have a self-exploratory examination internally, obviously, and really pay attention to who we pay attention to. Where is our free time going? Is it going to Hulu all day? And I think if these people, actors, weren't so good looking, would we care? If they weren't on a big screen and transporting us to the Matrix, or, would we care so much? So I think these are questions that I became interested in. And I think also I just watched the Val Kilmer documentary, so that sort of percolated these emotions and feelings that I'm having right now, and I felt it was an important conversation to have. So I'll leave you with that. You know where to find me on Instagram at Eddie Cohn or the Spiritual Spiral Podcast, or Twitter. Again, big, enormous thanks to Polly Humphreys for joining me on today's episode. And thank you to you for listening and supporting, subscribing, and being a part of the Downward Facing Spiritual Spiral podcast. Say something.
You hear me?
Now I do, yeah. Nice and crisp.
Oh, crispy.
Oh, gosh.
Oh, God.
I was thinking there's so much that we could... Our last podcast was one of the most downloaded podcasts I've ever had, so the stakes are high.
God, no pressure, as I'm sitting here feeling brain dead.
I know. A little backstory. I read Amusing Ourselves to Death by Neil Portman. It came out in the 80s. Joseph Gordon-Levitt was talking about it with Mark Maron. And Joseph has been very vocal about, he even did a TED Talk, he was very vocal about the destruction that social media is sort of creating. And this book came out in the 80s, and it talks about more the television and how obviously the parallels are obvious with social media now, but it sort of touches on we as human beings are enthralled and so enamored by this idea of just being entertained. Like,
correct.
So I then so it really, opened up, I swear I'll let you talk in like probably a minute or so. It really opened up my brain to a whole new world of like, wow, how we can be so content to just sort of like be home all day and watch Netflix or Hulu. And then I started to think, where did we become so enamored with actors and actresses? So then this leads me to that same week, my friend told me to watch the Val Kilmer documentary on Amazon.
Right.
And there's a lot to unspool here, of course, but I really watched the film, thought it was good, but I couldn't help but think, why do I care? Why do I care about Val Kilmer? Like, here's a guy, before I let you talk, because I know you're like jumping at the bit here. Here's a guy that, like, I guess he's done some okay work. He went to Juilliard. Clearly, he's a talented actor.
Yeah.
But then I started to think, why do we care so much about actors? I know a lot there to unspool. And the irony is you're an actor. And,
right.
And I guess my point here is that I understand, like, I almost feel like film, it's not even the actor's medium. Like, it's the director's medium or it's the screenwriter's medium. And it's like, have we just been hoodwinked to pay so much attention to actors because of like Access Hollywood and Entertainment Tonight and they're good looking? Have we all been sort of hoodwinked and put our attention towards the wrong auteur?
Speaking on behalf of actors everywhere.
No, I know, but I'm very curious because I really did find myself. I was struck by the fact that I was so amazed that Val Kilmer is holding a camera with him everywhere he's going, and this is before now.
But okay.
So first of all, like my guess, am I?
We have a lot of different things to talk about.
Yeah, there's a lot of layers there. Yeah.
All right. So starting with the Val Kilmer film itself, you know, I don't think that is a film that you should that is a part of your question about why we care so much about actors. It is a really personal, very, very sad, last hurrah. And it's not even a hurrah. It's a last, for a guy. He never expected to make this film. He never expected his career to be cut short while he was just beginning to, in his mind, hit his stride. You know, he's made a million movies. You know, I haven't seen that many Val Kilmer movies. He's not an actor of importance to me, which makes him a good person for me to talk about this way, because he's sort of, you know, he's a guy who had an okay career. He had an interesting career. He certainly had a consistent career.
Yeah.
But,
wait, hold on. Sorry, my cats are like freaking out. I know. You hear them? They're like fighting. Please, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
No, that's okay. He was, you know, what's interesting and weird and what makes this an interesting sort of flawed self-portrait is that just by chance, he was a guy who loved to turn on cameras from the time he was a little kid.
Yeah.
You know, and all this footage of himself, so that when he was struck with tragedy, that is the taking away of his instrument, at the point in his career where he was starting to take charge and wanted to make his own stuff, you know, he was making that the Mark Twain thing that he felt was going to be his epic thing. And he was, you know, he got cancer and was unable to speak and was unable to ever finish his kind of artistic quest. So what are you going to do then?
You know, it's
a lifetime. Let me finish this one.
Sorry.
you've got a lifetime full of these movies that you've taken of yourself and everybody else that you've worked with. So you make your sad movie. Like someone else would have written a memoir, would have written something.
Yes.
He didn't have to write something because he had all this film. And that was the way he always wanted to express himself. Like some of that footage, a lot of it is, he just is carrying a camera and he turns it around and looks at himself. But there are other parts where it's like he set up a camera or someone did it for him and he did this. Like he was like kind of keeping, the original keeping a video diary before that was a thing. And there's all that stuff about, making movies with his brother who died so young.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know that the case of the Val Kilmer movie, we can talk about both of the things, but to me, the Val Kilmer movie isn't really is a less clear case of an actor getting our attention because they're an actor. Val Kilmer was like, I'm not getting any attention anymore because my shit's done. So let me make the thing and throw it at you.
That's, I guess, let's talk about that. I guess that's what I felt, though. It felt to me like I'm not satisfied with my career or maybe the attention or accolades that I've gotten over the years. I am going to make this documentary to hopefully get people to respect me. And it felt manipulative and it felt not heartfelt. Like, look, clearly there was heart put into this. I was moved by it, but I also was really struck by those scenes where, and again, this goes to this whole gray area of our artists, in this case actors, doing it because the craft, or are they doing it because they love the attention? And there is this strange, and I've spoken to both of them, and there's a couple scenes where he's on set with Marlon Brando, and he's having this tiff with the director, and he refuses to turn the camera off. And there's this other scene where he's either debating or having a conflict with either his ex-wife or his lawyer about custody, and the freaking camera is on, and it's sort of like I really felt like he was foreshadowing our culture's obsession with attention, fame, dopamine. Like he didn't have any clue. This isn't about me. It's the director's film. I need to turn off the camera and listen. Like his ego and perspective was so warped because he's so. Last thing, and then I felt like, is he even aware of what's appropriate? Like I should turn my camera off because I'm talking to my lawyer. Those are some things that I really thought about when I was watching it.
Okay, and I would say that he, so the thing where he was fighting with the director, I mean, they were having a real conflict about this, and he was using his then video camera the way that people use their cell phones now. He says, I need a witness.
Yes.
And that's why he doesn't turn it off. Because he felt that, as he says about that director, you can say, action and cut all you want to. You're not a director. The original director was fired. They brought him on. Brando decided he was not going to do anything anymore because he hated this guy. It's clear that everybody on that set was miserable. So,
yes.
So he was kind of being a dick.
Yeah.
And he was also kind of saying, I want people to hear how we're being treated, so I'm filming this. And that, I think, is the same case. It's intrusive, but it kind of foreshadows something else that's going on now, which is, sorry, the Venice noise.
It's okay.
People having their cell phone cameras on whenever anything starts to go wrong to document it.
Yeah.
He was doing that with a VHS camera, and I do agree, but I don't think he made this because I don't think the lack of attention, that thing that you're saying about needing attention, every performer has. You have it.
Yeah.
It's not like this sickness, it's not it's not that the attention was taken away from him. It's that he hadn't finished expressing himself as an artist, and he's never going to have that opportunity. It's gone. It's done. His voice is never coming back. He's not going to be handsome again. He's not going to be healthy again. So he created this as kind of almost like an epitaph, and it's sad and it's horrible. And
Now,
it's
I've
really
read.
hard to watch, and he's kind of repulsive,
Yeah. Yeah, no,
which
absolutely.
also, I think, then says to the viewer who maybe, who is seeing it, like, why does he want me to look at him? Why does he want me to watch this? He's gross. He wants you to because he needs to finish the story.
Yeah, but I also think that he is probably realizing that he was. Look, I'm not trying to disrespect you and your craft and what you do as an actor, but I think there is something to be said about people that do get fed up with being in such a superficial, potentially superficial business. And
He's certainly one of those people. He made that clear.
yeah, I mean that is clearly a point, and I guess I'm not trying to separate, authors. I look, there's a fine line. When I spend a year and a half on a record, I'm doing it because I truly feel called to do it.
Right.
Getting people to buy it, getting people to listen and watch, I get frustrated that is any part of what I have to do. I guess there's something about the way that we as a culture lionize actors.
Yeah.
And
It's because you see them. It's because you look at them.
yeah, but I also feel like it's strange. But I just read this article about the shift in the movie industry, and now it's all streaming, and it's so complicated. But there's something about, look, I Parasite, I forget his name. Clearly, there's actors, directors that are true filmmakers. Steven Soderbergh, although I didn't like his latest film with Don Cheadle, I thought it was mediocre at best. He to me is a filmmaker. They're true artists in the film industry, but it feels like it's not about the craft or the art. I really feel like
Well, because there are different kinds of movies.
clearly,
There are movies,
yeah,
and the industry makes actors into, well, it doesn't entirely do it, but the industry is all about having you fall in love with whoever the latest whoever is. America's sweetheart. They want us to, whoever the latest, like, hunky guy, whoever the latest relatable gal. The industry places them in publicity sorts of situations in which they are being made into that. And of course, actors go with it because it's what makes careers huge.
yeah. And I'm not. I guess I feel like the combination of watching that movie and then reading the book. Oh, it was Johnny Depp who was talking about today about sort of the implosion of the industry. I think I've reached a tipping point where, and I don't know if it's just my priorities. I think it's become very clear that the PR machine, the entertainment machine, is trying to get us to feel a particular way about famous people. And I think our priorities about who's really important in this world is completely out of whack. And
Well, so yes. But having someone who is completely important, it is human nature. You started with this to want to have archetypes, to want to have people to look up to, and so this is a conversation involving you and and your friend Polly, who's a little bit of a dummy, but who has ideas about things. So we'll just keep going.
Yeah, of course. No, but
wait.
Yeah.
Because let me say, because
Sorry.
what I was going to say is, I would venture a guess that before movies, and I know this is true, there were plays, and plays were done in secular settings, but before that, they were done in temples and churches and those settings to teach morality. And you betcha they didn't get like the ugly weirdo to play in those things. They got, the best looking person in the village who was also the most virtuous, so that people would look up to them. And, and before that, guaranteed that, when it was just kind of a crowd of like hairy people, the strongest, most charismatic in their hairy way was the person that everybody looked up to. Like, it is in human nature. And, people also create mythical gods. We've got all the, sorry, anybody who's religious, but all of the, Jesus and Buddha and Moses and, Vishnu, like all those dudes and women. There are women, Artemis, but they're all superhuman.
Yeah.
Because we want someone to be like, oh my God, let me be like them. Let me be like Buddha or Tom Cruise,
No, I think you're right. I guess I'm really questioning, it's so weird. I have a friend who has a woman who has underarm hair, and I hadn't seen her in years. And I was saying to Emmy, and we were even talking, it's like, where did this cultural shift happen where underarm hair became, not demeaning, repulsive.
Gross. To only with women. Men don't have to do it.
But that's the thing. So I, of course, the weirdo that I am, I go online and type in like underarm hair online, and I come to find out back in like the early 1900s, Gillette had a huge stronghold on the men's market, and these clothing designers in fashion magazines started to show women in dresses. And so Gillette and these fashion designers started to think, how can we make women, maybe even start to feel insecure about their bodies? And so they started to show women wearing these dresses with shaved armpits for the first time. And so Gillette's market just like went through the roof over the next like 5-10 years. I think it got me thinking like how easily manipulated. I'm not trying to demean people that act. I think I've said it before, our lionization and our adoration towards, and the way that we just are in awe of what they do. It's sort of like you are pretending you're acting to be somebody else. Why is that something that is worthy of people just falling on their face when Leonardo DiCaprio walks by?
Oh, Eddie, this is a whole now we're getting hard.
No, but wait, hold on. But I feel the same way about sports too. I mean, it really frustrates me. And I bring this up because over the last 18, 20 months, I know that their whole lives have been uprooted because of what's going on. Meanwhile, because I'm a huge sports fan, I read Chris Paul gets $40 million. The NBA is still doing this. People, the NFL is still making all this money. There's a lot here, but I don't know. Our culture's priorities, I'm hoping, is potentially shifting. I do love movies. I just don't know if the attention and the money that they're all getting is worth it.
Well, right. Okay. So the money in sports and in entertainment is insane.
Right.
The money in high level corporate positions is also insane. So I think if the money is offensive, There's a lot more. There are many more places to look for people making offensive amounts of money.
Right. Yes.
The attention. Here's the thing: people who are pretending to be other people, they don't. That's not a random thing that you just do. People who are writing about other people are also pretending to be inside another person.
Oh, good.
And what they're writing is meant to be performed. Someone has to fill it. And film, you said this before, that it was, perhaps not the actor's medium, but it's a collaborative medium. Actors and directors need each other. And the writers, authors, people, often, people write parts with specific actors in mind because they know how that person can fill what they've written. Bad acting is unbearable.
Yes.
And, and there's a shitload of it. It's all over the place. But when an actor really reaches into their own personal, well of joy and pain and acts from their heart, it's incredible. And you know that because you've seen it. And they get to that place with the aid of a director. The flip side of that coin is film is a medium that is visual, and it's not just the performance of the actor, it's the framing of the shot, it's the music, it's everything else that the director brings to it. And when a director reaches into their most creative place, it's incredible. And the best of all is when you have actors and directors who are inspiring one another, and then you get something extraordinary.
Yeah.
And but the admiration part, that societal thing that you're talking about, is a whole separate thing. So there are people, you and I and other people admire actors and directors who and musicians and everyone else involved in a film who give us something that really moves us. But there's but then there's the Marvel franchise.
Right.
You know what I mean? Then those are designed. That it is the reason it's a franchise, and they're going to keep making them and making them and making them. And I think we talked about this the last time.
I think we did.
But it's because every single time, you get to see whoever the fuck it is playing Luke, whatever the fuck, and you're like, yeah, he's there again. Oh, he beat those guys up, and he's still so fucking great. And those are the actors that I think that's what you're talking about. That is manipulation.
Yeah.
That is, and believe me, the entertainment industry is all about making money. That, like any other industry, that's what they want to do. So if they can convince someone that, whoever, oh my God, it's on the tip of my tongue. There's an actor right now that I'm thinking of, but anyway, I'm not, it's not going to pop out. So, but whoever it is, if that person is your, you just love him. You love whatever he does. If they can make you feel that way, they're going to do that. And it's going to make them money, and it's going to make him money. And they're playing on what we were talking about before, which is people want it. They want someone to, like, if the most admirable person in your life is like your grandpa, you're just wishing for something more.
There's something that I was thinking about while you were speaking. Another reference to Joseph Gordon-Levitt. he was so humble.
By the way, I have had kind of a sickening crush on since he was a little child.
Since he was 12.
Yes, when he was like on, Third Rock from the Sun, I was like,
right.
I can't wait till he grows up. Anyway, go ahead.
Well, Mark Maron and he were talking about his career, and Joseph was saying something like, "Look, sure, I consider myself good at my craft, but I've also been exceedingly lucky."
Yeah.
And I think there is a certain ego about some successful artists where I feel like they think they are where they're at because just of how great they are. And that really, wait, hold on. So this is something that I struggle with. I really struggle with how much is talent, but how much is just luck and timing. And I guess my point is that I really believe there's 1,000 super talented writers, singers just as talented as Bruce Springsteen, but so much is who you sleep with, who you're around, your circle, and I don't know.
Who you met on that certain day. Look, I am an aging actor who doesn't work enough. I don't want this to sound bitter and weird because I'm not bitter. I am weird, but I'm not bitter.
Right.
I could easily have the quality of the work that I do is such that I could be working all the time, but things have not, for all kinds of reasons, happened that way. And I am one of a gazillion. There are tons, many of whom, by the way, said at some point, I'm going to move on and do something else. I'm just like, I'm still doing this.
Right.
But most actors, like Joseph Gordon-Levitt, most actors are aware of how lucky they are. There are, a teacher of mine once said very wisely that if you really want to see the salt of the earth best actors, go see theater in the small theaters around the country where they're still banging away and doing it, because those are the people that do it because they have to. They're not making a great living. They're still acting because it fulfills them. And you're going to see some crap too, but still,
I guess it bothers me sometimes, actually quite regularly, when I see people in this state of I am just so amazing, and it's because I'm so great that I'm in Mission Impossible 10.
Correct.
And it's like,
when you see people on, talking about their craft, and it's like, get the fuck out of here. It's not craft. You're not crafted, Yes, I've been with you 100% about that all along. I agree. A long time ago, Will Smith was on Inside the Actors Studio. This, a long time ago, when he was, fresh off Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. And Will Smith is someone who, all these many years later, having learned his craft on set, is, pretty good. But at that time, I could barely contain my rage as I watched, James Lipton stick his tongue up Will Smith's ass, basically,
right.
being like, and how did you learn, to be so genuine? And Will Smith was really, I don't remember his specific answers, but he was speaking as though he had all this, wisdom and training. It was like, stop it.
Yeah.
But so, yes, I get that. I get that 100%.
But that's a great example. We do treat them as royalty, and I don't, and it bothers me. And I don't want to get, I know this could rub you the wrong way, but I will say that Emmy's performance, everybody there, no masks, all the people that are like working on staff, clearly I'm sure we're vaccinated. They're all wearing masks. It's just such bad optics. And the idea that whoever's running the Emmys is not saying, you know something, we should probably have the people that are waiting on them or bringing drinks not wear masks, because let's face it, they're all vaccinated. That's the only way they got in there. It's like we perpetuate their royalty attitude, and it drives me nuts sometimes. I think about like the teachers who, I think about people that are struggling to literally put food on the table over the last 20 months. It's like, and here we are. I mean, I'm kind of thankful that the Oscars, their ratings last year were just like went through the toilet, because I'm almost thinking, maybe people are waking up to this idea that, maybe we give them a little bit too much attention. I don't know.
Well, yes. And there's another part to that too. Like, I get it. It looks terrible for people to be all gowned up and, celebrating one another.
Yeah, it's look, I used to come in and talk to you about sorry to interrupt. I love talking about movies. I mean, I love being moved by I don't know, any like even Die Hard. I remember seeing that when I was like 12 or 13. I love that. I saw it 10 times. But you bring up that point of like Will Smith and James Lipton just kissing his ass. We do have this way of treating them like royalty. It's interesting. Because
it goes back to what you were saying. There's some, you're making an okay point, that people want to look up to people.
Yeah.
And so, Will Smith is a rising young star. James Lipton is going to do that, genuine. Because that's what James Lipton does, frankly, also. I mean, that show was just hilarious anyway. Right. But also because, in a way, and then this is just occurring to me now, it's like, oh my God, you're so lucky. What makes you so special? How'd you do it?
Yeah.
And at that point, I think also a young Will Smith was 100% committed to a life as an actor. That's what he was going to do. But, he had opportunities that lots of people don't have at that point in his life. As a mature person, I know, because he has said it now, he knows how lucky he was. So maybe it's also, youth, like young actors. And the other thing is when your manager and your agent and the publicity machine and the studio and the network are all going, my God, you're a phenomenon. You're incredible. Whoa. And you're 18 or 20. You're like, I guess I am.
Yeah.
Yes, I am. We're giving you shitloads of money. And, and you're emancipated from your parents. You get to go live in a mansion in Brentwood. You're a genius. And you're like, and then someone in the press says, so how do you feel about, whatever it is? And you start with, well, as you know, I'm a phenomenon and a genius. So good. I'm glad you asked.
Yeah, right.
And I'm 21.
Yeah.
But that is not the fault of that actor. That is the fault of the machine around that actor. And there Joseph Gordon-Levitt is an example of someone who didn't do that. He didn't go there. He in fact quit acting for a while. Mm-hmm. He was done. He went to, I forget where he went to, like NYU or Columbia or somewhere, and was like, I'm not going to do this anymore. And like the story that I've heard that I read somewhere was that he couldn't quit because he really is an actor. It is his way of expressing himself artistically, and he realized he didn't want to give it up. But he also wanted to be educated, and he also wanted to be a normal person. To some degree, Drew Barrymore is an example of that. She was like out of her mind and in clubs and in rehab when she was like 12,
right.
And she got her shit together. But that, which also brings us to all of those child actors who have become tragic figures because of that need, that people have. So how about this, Eddie? Not that actors need to be lionized, but that the industry lionizes them and then just kind of throws them out there.
Yeah. Well,
To
here's
see if they'll survive.
here's my last point, and this touches on what you're
Oh,
talking.
you have notes. So unfair.
No, I don't have notes. This is I take pride in being extemporaneous.
Yes.
So, we've been working on these focus groups for this television company, and I asked this question ad nauseum: how many hours of television are you watching a week? And I'm telling you, 70-80% of people are saying, 30, 35 hours. And they always follow that by saying, oh, it's the pandemic. So,
Right.
and I got rid of Netflix 6 weeks ago. And this goes to your point. I really think we have been hoodwinked to value that sort of content. Like, that's more important than going for a walk or reading a book or writing, being your own creator. I really think about this idea. I was listening to another podcast. Are you an active participant in life, or
Right.
are you passive? It's one thing to watch The Handmaid's Tale, or listen to a new YouTube record because I'm looking for ideas. But it's another thing when you are spending 30, 40 hours a week to watch television. And this is my point of my podcast. It's like, do you have the awareness? Are you even awake enough to realize that you just wasted 40 hours this past week watching television? And Neil Portman in his book says, if you're watching the average human being watches like 2 to 4 hours of television a day, spread out over 70, 80 years, that comes to 10 years of your life. And I don't know if it's getting older, the pandemic, this book, but I just, to your point, I really feel like we're sort of these feeble-minded creatures where, because the television looks pretty, and again, it goes to our obsession with iPhones and screens, like we have this adoration towards the visual. And it's like all these devices, and it's like, it's almost, I know we all think that we have choices, but it's so hard to resist the titillating temptation of the TV and the cell phones. Turn it off and like be a more active participant.
Well, preach, dude.
Right.
But because I don't disagree with that, and that the pandemic was a situation in which people sort of admitted to it, and consumed more content because they were not allowed to go out and do other things. I will say this too, about doing it as an alternative to being creative or participating yourself. For you and for me, that is a real concern. There are a ton of people in the world who don't particularly care about or want to create anything.
Right.
And they are the majority of the audience. And you and I, as people who create, need to be grateful to those people.
Yeah, but this isn't just about, I believe it goes, this isn't just about creator versus non-creator. This is active, passive,
right, participating in life.
And I really, maybe I'm old school here, but I do feel like if you were I can't think of brought down, but if you're restricted to 140 characters or less on Twitter, if you are only watching television and not reading, if you're only like all of these things, I do think shrink people's brains in this weird sort of.
Correct? Yeah, they do.
But
I would say this, that if you took away, if you took away and did it in a way where they didn't know they had ever had it, if you took away TV and you also took away the memory of TV, if you took away, um, all of the passive ways that you can pass your time, there's still a ton of people who would then sit in a chair
Right.
and
Do nothing.
figure out how to do something else to avoid participating in their lives. There is a, some people have the need to explore their minds and the world, and other people are just getting through the day.
Yeah.
And as I say that, I sound judgmental, because to me, I can't imagine being that person. But for those people, it's like, yeah, I mean, I go to work, I come home. I have kids. We do the things that you do with your kids, and then they grow up, and then I'm gonna, play golf, and I'm gonna,
right.
or not play golf. No, I won't play golf, because but you know what I mean. The fact that they aren't out being larger, bigger, more spiritually connected people is not a problem to them.
Yeah.
And I don't think, if it isn't TV, if it isn't the internet, if it isn't movies, if it isn't a vibrator or whatever, it's, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's going to be there. It's going to be some other way to pass their time on the planet, in a sort of non-participatory way. And not everybody wants to look at themselves.
One more point, just because of what we were just talking about, that I think about, and I talk about a lot. I just finished, I spent, 18 months on a record. It's finally done. I've been working on a book for like 3-4 years. It's almost done. And then I say to myself, what does it take to get anybody to care? Like to sort of like turn off whatever they're doing for, like, it just felt like 10, 15, 20 years ago, it was easier to get somebody's attention for 30 minutes or like, I feel like to navigate this insanely distracted world, I say to myself, without taking off clothes, without like showing nonstop drugs on, like what is it? I feel like Parasite was such an anomaly for me, because it was like, here's a movie that's just great, and people went to see it. So clearly, I do believe that people still yearn for high quality art. But gosh, it's like, what does it take to get that to be sort of like mainstream? What does it take to get people's attention,
Well, for one thing, it takes enough of it. That Parasite is unique. So there has to be, people will, I will say this, I think that both the film and television industries are guilty of dumbing things down, when in fact, I think their audiences are more adept and smarter than they think they are. I think that the things that they think wouldn't sell would sell. And I'm not sure that we'll ever be able to change that, because they use their stupid, algorithms and focus groups, to arrive at the idea that, that something banal is just too sophisticated. So one thing that would make the mainstream more filled with quality would be if there were more quality available, if it could get made.
Yeah.
Parasite was made in Korea; it wasn't made here.
Right.
So, and then also, though, I also think your frustration with your work, not, with working so hard on something and having such a hard time getting it noticed, isn't unique. There are a lot of artists that feel the way that you do. And the longer you and I are at this, and everyone else is at this, the more that part of it becomes incredibly frustrating. And to be in an era when there is just so much content all over the place, it does, like, I feel your pain.
Yeah, yeah.
You know? And I'm not sure that your struggle with being noticed as an artist and the way that the world is moving are necessarily in conflict. Like I think, you know, I if you flip it and you look at it another way, this is shit I tell myself every day so I can just keep going. There are so many more outlets for us to use to be noticed. You know, and you can put together an album all by yourself and have it made and done and out there, you know?
Yeah.
I mean,
Look,
still,
you know,
it's still worth the effort.
yeah. I mean, I think I've learned the process of creation is so cathartic, enjoyable.
Yeah.
I feel alive. So, you know, that's primarily why I'm doing it. And honestly, my videos have gotten more views. I've gotten more accolades than ever before. It's like, I've never understood the sophomore slump with records. And I think a lot of it is because you spend 15 years on your first record, you get a record, you get a record deal, then the label's like, okay, we need another one in a year. And I know, but I just, you know, I think, yeah, I think about, I guess the world is a better place for all of us when the standards of quality are high,
Higher.
you know.
Yes. Couldn't agree more. See, we do agree.
We do agree.
But the thing is, you and I are not in a position to raise the standard. So the alternative is to create things that are up to our standard and make sure that they get seen or heard or, you know, listened to. Like this podcast.
Yeah, this was good. No, I think it's because we had all these talks over the years. It's funny listening to you try to disagree with me on a point that you agree with, but you're still searching for a way to get the other side. I like that. That was good.
Yeah, well, because I just want to make sure we're covering the whole.
Yeah, no, it's good.
You know, the whole question.
Yes.
Yeah. And, you know, I think at the end of the day, I mean, honestly, if we get back to Val Kilmer for just one moment.
Sure, why not?
Yeah, I mean, let's wrap it up. Let's wrap it up with Val, shall we?
Yeah, best actor of our generation.
Best actor of our generation. Well, that's the thing. Like, that, I mean, I feel for him. And, you know, when he is sitting now in his, you know, meditation room with all that fucking turquoise all over him, watching his documentary over and over again, because I kind of think that's probably what he's doing. That's who he made it for.
Yeah.
He made it for himself. You know, the fact that he's Val Kilmer got it out there.
Yeah.
And what makes me sad is that maybe that's going to be his legacy. You know, the thing where he was signing the autographs and stuff was just so sad. And he says it. He says, you know, I don't always feel good about doing this, but it reminds me, but seeing people that liked my work and he's talking about movies that he liked that he made makes him feel good. Like, he just wants to feel better.
Yeah.
And we had an opportunity to look into his world and see him in that painful state. And so I think at the end of the day, Val Kilmer is brave.
Okay. Well.
And really, really gross. And he has terrible tasting clothes.
Yeah. Well, this was great. It's always good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is the first time I've seen you in like a year and a half.
It's been maybe the last time we did a podcast. been a long time, right? Because I know we did a podcast once. I think the pandemic.
We haven't done one during the pandemic.
We haven't? Okay, gosh.
No,
so
the
yeah.
last time we saw each other was like on March 12th when we were like, I'm not coming back, are you?
Yeah, that was like a year and 8 months ago. So Polly, this was great. I appreciate you taking the time. You're like, you have, I think this is your third time on the show. You're not, a couple people have been on the show 4 times, so you haven't quite reached that threshold.
What do I get? Do I get a jacket or something?
you get an emergency.
Oh, yes. Awesome.
Vitamin C is very important these days, so I'll mail you some emergency.
Great. I'm in the club.
I'll talk to you soon. Thanks again.
Bye.